Hi, I'm Sarah, creator of A Gentle Mind, and what you're looking at right now is something I built with a lot of intention. It's called the Emotional Pattern Decoder, and it was created for one simple reason. Most of us were never taught how to understand our emotions. We were taught to manage them, hide them, push through them, or feel ashamed of them. But emotions aren't problems to fix. They're signals to understand. The Emotional Pattern Decoder is a guided reflection worksheet designed to help you slow down and gently explore your emotional landscape, not with judgment, with curiosity. This tool walks you through identifying your emotional loops, recognizing thought patterns, and understanding behavioral responses, so you can shift unhelpful patterns in a structured, compassionate way. Because here's the truth. You are not too emotional, you are patterned, and patterns can be understood. When you understand the pattern, you gain awareness, and when you gain awareness, you gain choice. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through each section step by step. Take your time with it, pause when you need to, reflect honestly. This isn't about being perfect, it's about becoming aware. Let's begin. Now we're stepping into the first active section. The emotion loop snapshot. This is where awareness begins. I want you to think about one recent emotional experience, not your whole week, not your entire history, just one moment. Maybe it was an argument, maybe it was a wave of anxiety, maybe it was a small situation that felt bigger than it should have. Start with the situation. What actually happened? Describe it simply, no analysis yet, just the facts. Next, identify the emotion you felt. Be specific if you can, not just bad. Was it frustration, embarrassment, rejection, fear, overwhelm? Naming the emotion reduces its intensity. Then look at your reaction. What did you do in that moment? Did you shut down, raise your voice, withdraw, over-explain, cry, avoid? Again, this is not about judging yourself. It's about observing. Now rate the intensity from 1 to 10, 1 being barely noticeable, 10 being overwhelming. This step matters more than people realize, because when you assign a number, you move from emotional chaos into measurable awareness. You're beginning to see the loop: situation, emotion, reaction. This is the foundation of understanding your patterns. And once you can see the loop clearly, you can begin to change it. Take a moment here if you need to, and when you're ready, we'll move to what triggered it. Now we're moving into trigger identification. This is where clarity deepens, because emotions don't just appear randomly, they're activated. Something set it off. Your job here isn't to overanalyze, it's to notice. Was it a specific person? Sometimes certain people activate old patterns, not because they're bad, but because they represent something familiar. Was it a particular place? Environments hold memory. Your nervous system remembers spaces even when your mind doesn't consciously think about them. Was it a certain time of day? Fatigue matters. Stress accumulates. Late nights, early mornings, hunger, overstimulation, all of these lower emotional tolerance. Was it a specific event? Something said, something done, something that didn't happen that you expected to happen. Was it a thought or memory? Sometimes nothing external happens at all. A single thought can trigger a full emotional response. A memory can activate your body like it's happening again. Was it a physical sensation? A racing heart? Tension in your chest? A tight stomach? Sometimes the body triggers the emotion before the mind understands it. Or was it something else entirely? The point of this section isn't to blame, it's to identify patterns. Because when you see what consistently triggers you, you stop being surprised by your reactions. And when you're no longer surprised, you can prepare differently. Triggers aren't weaknesses, they're information, and information creates power. Take a moment to reflect honestly, and when you're ready, we'll move into what your thoughts were during that experience. Now we're stepping into the thought pattern decoder. This is where things start to make sense, because emotions are powerful, but thoughts are often what fuel them. So ask yourself, what was I thinking when I felt that emotion? Not what I wish I was thinking, not what sounds rational now. What was actually running through my mind in that moment? Look at the patterns listed here. Catastrophizing. Did your mind jump to the worst possible outcome? Did one mistake suddenly feel like a disaster? Overgeneralization. Did one situation turn into a global belief? I always mess things up. This always happens to me. No one ever understands. Mind reading. Did you assume you knew what someone else was thinking? They must think I'm stupid. They're judging me. They're upset with me. Without real evidence, personalization. Did you take something personally that may not have been about you, or use should statements? I should be better. I shouldn't feel this way. I should have handled that differently. These rigid expectations create internal pressure, and pressure increases emotional intensity. Now here's where it shifts. Evidence 4. What actual evidence supports the thought? Then ask yourself something just as important. Evidence against. What facts challenge that thought? This is not about forcing positivity. It's about creating balance. Your first thought is often automatic, but automatic doesn't always mean accurate. And that leads to the final step. Balanced thought, not denial, not self-criticism. Balance. Instead of, I ruined everything, it might become, I made a mistake and I can repair it. Instead of, they hate me, it becomes, I don't have proof of that. When you shift the thought, you soften the emotion. And when you soften the emotion, your behavior changes. This is how patterns begin to break, not by suppressing feelings, but by examining the thoughts behind them. Take your time here. This is where real clarity happens. And next, we're going to look at how those thoughts influenced your behavior. Now we arrive at the final part of the loop, the behavior loop, because emotions lead to thoughts, and thoughts lead to actions, or sometimes avoidance. This section asks an honest question. What was your coping response? Not what sounds healthy, not what you wish you had done. What did you actually do? Did you avoid? Maybe you withdrew, ignored a message, canceled plans, distracted yourself. Avoidance lowers discomfort in the moment, but it often keeps the pattern alive long term. Did you seek reassurance? Maybe you asked someone, are you mad at me? Did I do something wrong? Reassurance can soothe anxiety, but when it becomes the only way you feel calm, it creates dependence on external validation. Did you turn to emotional eating? Food can feel regulating. It's not about lack of control. It's often about your nervous system searching for comfort. Was there substance use? Sometimes people cope by numbing, not because they're weak, but because the emotion felt overwhelming. Was it rumination? Replaying the situation again and again, trying to solve it after it already happened. Rumination feels productive, but it usually increases anxiety instead of resolving it. And maybe your response was something else entirely. There is no judgment here, only awareness, because when you see your coping pattern clearly, you gain the ability to interrupt it. And that leads to the most important question on this page. What would I like to try next time? Not perfection, not a complete personality shift, just one small change. Maybe you pause before reacting. Maybe you take 3 slow breaths. Maybe you wait 10 minutes before sending that text. Maybe you choose a boundary instead of avoidance. Change doesn't happen in dramatic leaps. It happens in small interruptions. When you understand the emotion, examine the thought, and recognize the behavior, you begin to break the loop. And once you break the loop, you create space for something healthier. That is growth. That is awareness. And that is how patterns shift. Now we move into the healing shift plan, because awareness alone isn't enough. Insight is powerful, but action creates change. After identifying your emotion, examining your thoughts, and recognizing your behavior, this is where you decide what happens next. Start with one simple action step, not something dramatic, not a complete personality overhaul, just one intentional shift. Maybe it's pausing before reacting. Maybe it's communicating directly instead of avoiding. Maybe it's choosing self-compassion instead of self-criticism. Small steps create sustainable change. Then look at the grounding tools checklist. These tools regulate your nervous system because when your body is calm, your thinking becomes clearer. Deep breathing. Slow, intentional breaths signal safety to your brain. Mindfulness meditation. Even a few minutes of present moment awareness can reduce emotional intensity. Sensory awareness. The 5 to 4, 3, 2, 1 method. 5 things you see. 4 things you feel. 3 things you hear. 2 things you smell. 1 thing you taste. This pulls your mind out of spiraling and back into the present moment. Physical movement. Sometimes your body needs release before your mind can settle. A short walk, stretching, anything that reconnects you to your physical space. And finally, affirmation. Not empty positivity, but intentional reinforcement. I am safe. I am worthy of love. I am capable of handling challenges. When you interrupt the loop with grounding and intentional thought, you begin to rewire your pattern, not overnight, but consistently. This is how healing works: awareness, reflection, small shifts, and repetition. You are not too emotional, you are patterned, and patterns can change. Now we zoom out. This is the weekly pattern review. Because one emotional moment teaches you something, but repeated moments reveal a pattern. At the end of the week, reflect on what you've noticed. What emotion showed up most often? Was it anxiety, frustration, shame, overwhelm? Write it down. Next, what were the common triggers? Was it a certain type of conversation, a certain environment, fatigue, specific people? Then look at belief. What belief kept repeating underneath the surface? Maybe it was, I'm not enough. I'm going to be rejected. I have to be perfect. I'm responsible for everyone else. Beliefs drive patterns more than situations do. Now ask yourself, what pattern do I see? Do I avoid when I feel criticized? Do I over-explain when I feel misunderstood? Do I shut down when I feel overwhelmed? This is where self-awareness deepens. And finally, insight. What did you learn about yourself this week? Not in a judgmental way, but in a compassionate way. Maybe you learned that exhaustion makes you more reactive. Maybe you learned that certain boundaries are necessary. Maybe you learned that your nervous system is still carrying old survival strategies. Patterns are not proof that you're broken. They're evidence that your brain adapted. And adaptation can be reshaped. When you review your patterns weekly, you stop living reactively. You begin living intentionally. This is long-term growth, not perfection, not instant transformation, awareness, reflection, adjustment, and repetition. This is how emotional patterns shift over time. And this is how you build a gentler relationship with yourself. As we close this workbook together, I want to remind you of something important. Healing is not about fixing yourself. It's about understanding yourself. May this emotional pattern decoder serve as a gentle guide on your journey toward emotional awareness and well-being. Approach yourself with kindness, with patience, with curiosity instead of criticism. The patterns you're uncovering didn't form overnight, and they won't shift overnight, but you are absolutely capable of creating meaningful change. One reflection at a time, one interruption at a time, one compassionate choice at a time. If you found this worksheet helpful, the full downloadable version is available for you. You can find it in my Stan store as well as in my Etsy shop. Both are linked in the description below. Take your time with it. Revisit it weekly. Let it become a tool you return to whenever emotions feel overwhelming or confusing. And always remember this: be kind to yourself. Be kind to others. You are worthy. You are enough, and you are deeply loved.